Car launch season is officially upon us. We are at Red Bull's event here in New York City. This is Unlapped, and as you can tell, we have a very, very special guest, Daniel Ricciardo, joining Katie George, Laurence Edmondson, and Nate Saunders here. Thank you so much. What's today been like for you with this Red Bull launch, the first ever season launch in the States?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been pretty great. This is like day one of work for the year, so just having fun with it. I'm transitioning from holiday mode to kind of work mode, so forgive me if I'm still a little delirious, but no, it's pretty cool. Like to have this season launch here in New York, and just to see the sport, how it's blown up here the last few years. It's wild, and even like honestly, I get recognized probably in New York as much as any other place, which is ridiculous to me. So I see it firsthand, and yeah, like Red Bull's fully pushing now, and it's cool.
Do you enjoy getting recognized, or is it getting to the point where it needs to be managed?
I invested in a taser. No, it's pretty cool. Like everyone here is pretty awesome. It's like they're friendly, like, and that's it's very much like Australia. Like they might yell out my name and run across the street and be like, "Oh, I just started watching," or like they'll say something nice and complimentary. So I'm like, "All right, you're cool, Knuckles," and then peace.
But you have to keep doing that over and over again. Like, I always think, doesn't it get repetitive after a while? But I guess it's not the worst thing to get repetitive.
Yeah. I was like, as long as like everyone's nice, like you can't. That doesn't get boring or old, you know. Like it's. I think, and then like obviously you go like as long as there's like respect. Is if you're like about to like have a mouthful of food and they're like grabbing you and like pulling you away and having a photo, then it's like, all right, maybe wait a couple minutes. But no, everyone's been like really nice and respectful, and as I said, just complimentary. So not many give me a hard time. So
do people still ask for autographs? Is it all selfies nowadays? Like the autograph seems to have slowed down.
Yeah, because my autograph book used to be my most treasured possession when I was a kid. Now no one does it.
I want to get into autographs. Let's get into autographs. I don't get it. Like I want to know who started autographs.
Terrible.
Who was the guy that said, "I'm going to sign this for you, and this is now our way of interaction"?
It's a lot of trust as well, because you're like, this is definitely his.
Yeah.
Like a selfie at least is like this. You can see it.
There's proof.
Yeah. Whereas an autograph, it's like, no, this definitely is him.
An old napkin with a scribble on it. You're like, yeah, this was LeBron James. It's like, wait, I don't think it was.
But I've also seen the piles of merchandise you guys have to sign at race weekends, and it's almost like, right, you'll have 2 hours engineering and an hour of signing stuff. That must drag on a bit. And
the signing's real, and there's a lot. So yeah. The photos are cool. I guess the photos are there's a bit more interaction, where like an autograph is sometimes just like kind of thrown at you and sign this and then they pull it back, where a photograph, there's normally like a, hey, how are you and where are you from or something. So a little bit more of a
Then they're in your bubble as well.
Then they're in your face. They're right up in there.
Which is either a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, depends.
Definitely depends. Do you like
I just had chewing gum, so I'm okay.
Well, I'll be the judge. Do you like your signature? A lot of people hate their signatures.
I don't love it. Nah.
Well,
I don't love it.
We see it every time when we go to Budapest. It's on in the gantry when you walk in. You've signed your name, haven't you? It's like a DR and a 3, right? So I feel like I've seen it. You signed the book as well that I wrote. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh, here we go. It didn't take long for this to come up, did it? The book.
So I like the D. I like the way I do my D. The rest is like, the 3, but that's pretty easy to do. But yeah.
If you're doing it over and over again, that's the easiest one to do, I guess.
Then you start, like, there's a quick way of doing it as well. I think that's as well, like with autographs, it can change a bit.
Sure.
But I guess with a photo as well, you can have a good hair day, a bad hair day. It's not always the same, is it?
No, it's not. What's
These
it feel
are
like?
real matters, aren't they?
They are. I know this is the hard-hitting stuff that we wanted to. Well, this is what it's about on Unlapped, obviously. What's it like being back?
Back like Red Bull, or just back in just away from holiday?
We're gonna get Red Bull back.
It's nice. It's been really good. Here we go.
Is Christian Horner gonna join the podcast?
To our latest young driver. Good to have you back.
Thanks, mate.
All right, see you soon.
Cheers,
Thank
mate.
you. Thank you.
There you go. So it is really nice to be back. And
Did you plan that right on cue?
no, but I feel you planned it.
Maybe.
You asked the question.
We'll see.
That was really, there's something about it where, yeah, I don't know. It just felt, as soon as we both were like, let's do this, it was like, oh yeah, kind of a light bulb. That's how, like what I've been using today is like a light bulb moment where it just made complete sense and it happened really quickly. And then like going back to the factory the first time, I was like, oh, like it's growing a lot. But then I was also like, this is very familiar. So, and just the amount of personal text messages I had from like engineers or mechanics that, I was working with at the time I was there. It was like really, really cool.
Yeah. First time you put the actual kit on itself, was there a bit of a like, oh, this is strange? Like, because, it is like when you have school uniform or whatever, you get used to like a way it looks, and suddenly you're like, this is weird. This is what I was doing 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange, but actually probably more so. Like it was more strange, like putting on a Renault one or putting on a McLaren one, because I'd had Red Bull colors for the most of my professional career, pretty much all of it actually. So kind of slipping back into these colors felt more familiar than anything else. Yeah.
Nice. And
I felt young again.
well, I mean, you look like the youngest, certainly out of me and Lawrence. So I'm not gonna say the same about Katie.
Yeah, don't put me in there.
Well, I was just going to follow that up. I mean, in terms of the decision this year to come back and do this role, how important was it that it was Red Bull and you had that familiarity? Did that kind of play kind of a key? I'm not saying it was the only reason, but it must have helped that decision, coming back here.
It did because I think once I'd come to terms with not racing and once I was like comfortable in myself, and because of course at first it was like a bit of a fear, like, oh my gosh, I'm like, can I not race? Like what does that mean? Like is this the career over? And once I'd realized that's what I needed and wanted, then the Red Bull thing kind of made the most sense and very clear, because it's like, all right, actually this is what I need at the moment. Yes, they've had amazing success and they're also a great team to be with, but just for me to kind of get back into an environment which I personally had success in, but also built a lot of relationships with, like that's probably like the little bit of confidence, boost I need as well. And even saying that, I'm like, I don't feel my confidence is down, but it's, of course I had a challenging year or two, so I don't want to be naive and be like, yeah, I don't need to be challenging myself again with a new environment. I think having the ability to step back into this one was like, yeah, the best thing. And very happy about that.
How
I
keen?
get free Red Bull again, so my fridge hasn't been stocked for a while.
That's a winner. How keen are you to get into?
It's the little things, Katie.
How can you get into a Red Bull car? Because we know when you were last in Red Bull cars and the way they handled and the way they performed, you were mega. And then you've obviously had struggles adapting to the McLaren. So getting back in a Red Bull, will that be the proof of like, I still got it. Like I can still do this. Will that motivate you to potentially?
I think so.
Get back into a racing.
I think so. Like if a lot of those feelings come back and if ultimately if the stopwatch is there, and my reference for now will be a simulator, but if I do start to feel like comfortable on the sim, and then I think it'll like fuel that fire. But yeah, I'm like going to take my time with it. I don't want to kind of jump to a decision early in the season like, oh yeah, like this is where I want to be for 24. I just want to let it happen. And but yeah, I expect to feel comfortable in this car, but it has changed, so I don't want to think it's exactly the 2018 car I drove, but I'm sure there'll be some things about it which I'm like, oh yeah, this is now doing what I like.
What do you think about the RB19? I mean, it really feels like they stepped out of their comfort zone with this one.
That's good chat. Good chat. I'm like, I get it, but I'm also, and whether I work for Red Bull or not, I do think the livery is really nice. Like, I think it's a really beautiful car. Okay, because they've had it now for quite a few years. People are like, oh, can we see something different? But the fact is, it's still it's kind of iconic now, and it's what they won in. So you also have the approach of, well, consistency, and if we're winning, don't change it. So can't hate on that.
I hear you. Are you going?
What would you do?
Don't ask me that.
Go.
I think it's beautiful, but I did think that maybe there would be like a smidge difference.
But Katie, you can enter the competition now.
I can
right?
actually in the US races. I can design Are you an artist?
No.
Okay.
I'm a visionary.
Oh, but I love that. Good response.
Although you say that, but the race helmets you've had for the last few years have always stood out pretty well. So I feel like you could,
Yeah,
you could have a good
contribute
crack.
some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
On Shantae.
Yeah.
On Shantae.
Nice. There's plugs everywhere, left, right, and centre. I love it. That's great.
Are you going to the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
How awesome is that? Have you been before?
I've been once before.
Which one?
Miami. So it was
Okay.
just before COVID, like 2020. And
Glad you didn't hit us with a Roman numeral because I wouldn't know which one was which.
Oh yeah. No, I don't know Roman numerals.
I don't know why they do that either.
It's whatever. Anyway, I'm excited because I've never really spent any time in Phoenix as well, Arizona. So like that's kind of cool and something different. I love the desert, so I'm sure it's warmer than here. But I'm a bit sad that the Bills aren't in. So
How did you become a Bills fan?
I met Josh Allen. So
No,
that
that was
was I was like, man, you're beautiful. Yeah. And he's like, I'm not afraid to admit it. He's my man crush. But he's also a friend now, which is really cool. And yeah, and also I like watch the 30 for 30, the Four Falls of Buffalo, which is, if you're not a fan, like watching that, like you just have to, how can you not? So kind of getting behind a team like that and with such like a story and the whole, I don't know. They're like, yeah, the coolest underdogs I've ever come across.
Keyword is underdogs because now you're in it. You're involved in the misery that comes with being a Bills fan. Are you okay with that?
I'm good with it.
Okay, you're in for the
this
ride.
This is when they need us most.
That's
so.
very true.
Bills Mafia. Is there a table you can throw me through?
Did you have much chance to talk to Josh after that match? Like, do you talk to him that often? And it, like, when you talk to another athlete from another sport, the fine line between winning and losing. I guess you can kind of empathize a bit differently than say I could if I spoke to you or to Josh Allen.
Yeah, that's where you, like, I'm always cautious with, because I feel I can understand an athlete, because no matter what the sport is, you go through the highs, the lows. Like there is definitely a lot of relation, but obviously each individual's different. So you want to try and kind of lend support, and because you can relate, but you also want to kind of be respectful of their space. But I did reach out to Josh, and he responded, so it was received. And it was just, it's tough because like everyone will always, even with me, like I'll get a gazillion messages after I win a race, but after a bad race, I might get one message. So it's kind of those ones that are more important, and they're the ones where you need your mates to pick you up or to tell you that everything's going to be okay. So he's a big teddy bear, and
he's awesome.
I want to cuddle him right now talking about it.
Well, actually, Nate, I think, needs to be cuddled, right? Because you're a Tampa fan?
Buccaneers fan. Yeah. So
did you shed a few tears when you saw the video come out?
Twice in a year when Brady quit. This time for good.
This one nearly hit more or harder. I don't know.
It was funny because a lot of websites. Do you see some websites literally just reprinted, but they changed like the dates and the details?
Oh.
They're like, he's been around, and they'd crossed out 21 and put 22 in or whatever it was. But it was weird, wasn't it? Because everyone thought, oh, he's back now and he's going to play for a bit. So, yeah. What's your thoughts on Brady, the GOAT? Do you think
Yeah,
hard to deny.
Yeah, hard to deny. And watching. So look, transparently, I've only got into the NFL like in the last few years, so I haven't been like a lifelong fan or supporter, but I have really got into it more and more. But yeah, just kind of watching the video, I mean, I again, being a fan now, like I watch as many games as I can, even if it's not the Bills. I just love the sport. So watching some games as well this year, you kind of got the feeling like it was probably going to happen with Brady. But yeah, it's hard because you pour your life into it, and walking away from something that you've had so much success in as well, and it's dictated probably all of your life, if not the majority. It was sad. Like, it's happy sad, but it's still sad. So but I think from the outside, it looks like it's the right time, and he can be a family man and find what's next.
You once received a
Yeah.
A throw from, I don't know if that's, I don't know anything about NFL, so you once received a throw from Tom Brady, but you did it in the coolest place pretty much in the world to do it, in Monaco, from one yacht to another. Am I right in saying that?
So
we actually ran that clip, didn't we, just after? That was the clip ESPN ran.
Yeah. It was pretty wild.
First take? Only take?
Yeah. So a lot of people, the catch was first take, but I saw a few people reference like the ball. So I think they cut to two different shots because he threw, I think, 3 in total. So I guess the best shot that they got of him throwing was with another ball. So it had like, I think maybe black stripes or white stripes. And the one I caught had like black stripes or something. So a few people were like, oh, this has been edited, or he didn't really catch it or something. But it was basically, they must have taken his like second throw, but then my first catch. But it all happened just the way it was clipped. But
so you're better than Brady though, because you got it right on the first one.
No. Well, he did as well. They just like
it's amazing.
But his second throw looked better.
It's amazing nowadays online. Like an innocent clip can go up, and within 10 minutes, people are like, "Well, this is 3 clips put together." I'm like, "What are you guys doing at home?" Like, it's crazy.
It's funny, but no, because I think maybe it got reposted again the other day, and then so like I guess more people were calling it out, but no, it did happen. And I knew very well who Tom Brady was, and that was the day I got pole. So I was like on a bit of a high, but then I was receiving this catch from Tom, so I was quietly like crapping myself, and anyway, it was fun. It's very cool.
So if you were to play in the NFL,
wide receiver.
Okay.
Yeah, wide
that
receiver.
That's kind of the glory position, isn't it? Like,
let me run.
Yeah.
Let me run, let me move. Just even like when I was younger, I played soccer. And I wasn't very good, but I had the gas tank, whereas just send a long ball down the line and I'll run and I'll get it. So I feel like that's me. And I back myself catching. I'm not great at throwing, but yeah, catching or receiving, that's me.
Why did you become a fan of the NFL?
Well, I love sport. So I literally over Christmas, I remember one of my cousins came up, like we're chatting and catching up, and we must have been talking about sports, and I think they said like, oh, I remember when you were young, we walked in on you watching lawn bowls. So like lawn bowls? Do you know what lawn bowls is?
Yeah.
Is that a breakdown?
It's like
in America and
like
bocce ball. Oh, okay.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is I would watch
Bocce
anything.
Ball, actually. Just so bocce is
and
how we say it in
a
America, but bocce is how you say it in Italy.
Yeah.
But you call it long ball?
Lawn bowls.
Lawn bowls.
It's kind of, I guess anyway, it's not the most exciting sport in the world.
Fair.
But I would watch, I would watch anything. And then I always obviously knew what the NFL was, but I'd never kind of given myself the time to like get into it, understand the game. And as soon as I like went to see a game, understood it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's quickly becoming my favorite sport. Yeah. It's pretty
Do you have
awesome.
a pick for the Super Bowl?
Eagles.
Is that just because of what happened to Josh?
Well, from the start of the season, I remember watching a few of the Eagles games because I was in Australia for the most part, and we could the time zone was good, so I got a lot of the games to watch, and I just felt like their defense was
so good,
pretty awesome, and I was just like, these guys are going to be hard to beat, and now they got to Super Bowl, so I'm like, they got this far. I think they're going to do it. What do you guys reckon?
So I was in Philadelphia on Sunday. I took some time in America here, so I've got to say Philly. I was out on the streets dancing, having a beer on the streets. I mean, legally, in a bar.
What did you think of Philadelphia after a win? Because
Philadelphia was wild. I'm glad I wasn't there after they'd lost the game because I feel like
I've heard
because they would have burned the city to the ground.
I think either way they knew that things were going to get smashed. It's whether they were getting trounced, like they were going to destroy things lovingly, or just out of pure frustration. But yeah, it was a cool city. Have you been to Philly?
No, I haven't.
Philly's cool. You should check it
It's
out.
the only
It's
place
really
in
nice.
America where they're going to grease light poles so people won't climb them after a game.
But wait, is this in a really supportive, loving way, or is it do we want them to win or do we not want them to win? Like,
I'm kind of
for the
conflicted
sake of
now.
the
I've
city.
been there, but for the sake of the city, which is beautiful, I kind of want
preserve
Philly.
Philadelphia,
I want
right?
Philly to, and Kansas have won it recently, right? So, or more recently,
Yeah.
anyway.
2020, I believe.
Yeah, well, that would have been the one you saw, right?
Yes,
that was,
Miami,
that was
exactly.
The one, yes.
Yeah, against,
so,
49ers.
So purely on that fact, I'm going to say the Eagles, I think, but it's going to be tight.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no place like Philly. So
Okay.
maybe,
I need to get there.
Maybe put it on your list. Maybe. In your return to Red Bull, have you seen any differences just being around for the last few months?
I mean, the factory, like, they own pretty much all of Milton Keynes right now. Like, they've expanded. So when I walked in, I was like, well, okay, wow, this has come a long way since end of 18. So that was more, I was just like, all right, like, you kind of see it, and then I'm like, all right, it's no surprise they've just won the championship. Like, they're all in, and that's kind of cool. And it just shows, like, the level. Like, this sport is the most wild sport in the world, where it's just you can't rest, you can't get complacent. And I know that's the case with a lot of sports, but just the way, like, it evolves, the development, all the technology, it's just still blows my mind. I don't understand it. Like, I feel like driving is kind of the easy part because I don't understand much else.
But you have such an interesting vantage point, I think, because you obviously were part of their second rise. And then you left, and so then you got to see it from a different side. You know, last season, watching kind of their dominance in a lot of ways, what was that like? What did you notice as a competitor?
So there was a lot of things I saw which were always there, and as soon as I saw they started to get that momentum, I was like, no one's going to touch them. They're winners. They're such a competitive group, you know, like the mechanics are all psychos. They'll work till like 2 a.m. and then run 5 laps of the track. And I'm just like, they're all just so competitive. And that environment is pretty dangerous when they start to get the ball rolling.
And they kept, people have left and have joined, but the core of that team has kind of stayed the same. You know, Christian's still there. And you see, I mean, like Ferrari's just changed team boss, and you see in some sports a very reactive kind of way of dealing with, you know, success or failure. So I feel like Red Bull now, they had all that stuff in place, like you said, and now that they've got to this point where they're winning, it's like, well, we didn't change anything from when we were winning before. So it shows you that continuity in sport sometimes is just so invaluable.
Yeah, it is, and there's always, you know, I say always, there's certainly times, you know, that urge to, you know, I speak for myself, go and try something different and go somewhere else and learn something new, but you know, then it's there is also value in just a familiar environment and consistency, as you say. So, I mean, look, I know no one's ever going to have it easy, but I think they're going to be hard to beat for the next few years at least. You know, I think they'll go on a bit of a run.
And with Ford coming as well, you know, building their own powertrains, which they've been planning to do. That's just like completing the whole set, isn't it? I mean, it's almost too much. How do you compete against that? And all on one campus as well, which they make a big thing about, rather than splitting the engine project from the chassis project. Yeah,
I know that's really big for them. All being on one campus, as you say, like that's huge. And because also time is money in this sport, you know, and it's time is performance, it's everything. So any ability to shorten a window, so to speak, is really valuable. And like I have a Ford Raptor, and I know how damn quick that thing is. So I'm just like, what's going to happen in 2026? You know, 3 more years of developing a Raptor. That's a lot of power that's going to go in the back of this car.
Is that, have you already asked Jim Farley if that can be the case on yours? He can mod it for 3 years straight. Just going back to the team, I mean, you were with Max as a teammate in 2018, and Max back then was kind of a fascinating driver because he clearly had the speed, but there was a lot of up and downs with him. And what we've seen in the last couple of years is, especially last year, I mean, it was almost flawless. He was out in front, a bit like what Lewis did with Mercedes, just kind of, he got out in front, didn't make any mistakes. What have you seen kind of change in him? Has it just been he's just got a bit older, he's got more experience? Because on the outside, he himself doesn't seem to have changed much, but the way he drives is, you know, he's much more, maybe not as calm as you might say other drivers are, but he's found a way to harness that aggression into the way he races now. Would that be, do you think that's fair?
Absolutely.
Fair statement?
Absolutely. Yeah. As you see, like the person is unchanged. He's more mature. Like he's just growing as everyone does, you know. He's not 21 anymore. He's, you know, mid-20s, and Yeah, but it's more like and I feel like it was already happening in 2018.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the first maybe 5-6 rounds every weekend. He had something like there was a unforced error. And then, his second half of the season, it was just like he turned it around and obviously gave himself a little bit of a talking to or whatever. And that's where it really started to kick off. And it was just really minimizing the mistakes. And, as you say, the speed was always there. I mean, he won his first ever race with Red Bull. So that was always, let's say, undeniable. It was just completing himself as a driver. But that's all. That's going to happen over time, and you mature, as you say. You learn as well. So, but he's obviously just running on such a level now, and his confidence is sky high, and he's pretty unfazed by most things. So he just gets on and gets the job done. So, yeah, he's tough to beat. Going to be tough to beat this year.
Is it exciting that you can start to benchmark yourself against him a little bit again? Because you would have seen exactly what he could do back then, but now you can get in the simulator and be like, Max does this, Max does that. Is that kind of a useful thing to have?
It's I mean, currently he's the best reference, but also for me as a reference of, what was a competitive teammate rivalry between us. That's where I'm also like curious to see where I currently kind of stand. And I remember things about his like driving style and what he would do. So also now to see all the data and kind of understand, is he just a refined version or has he changed some things along the way over the last few years? So all this stuff, it's kind of cool because I can see it all, but it's kind of like at a distance. I can get as deep into it as I want, and then do probably as much simulator as I want till I drive myself dizzy.
Because on that, we were wondering just before the show, how, in terms of simulator, it seems like you're going to be doing a bit, but in terms of actually being in the paddock, that seems like it's maybe going to be less. Is that going to be quite nice for you to actually get away from it and unwind a bit? Because those days, those long weekends in the paddock, and sometimes you're like, right, it's Thursday again, it's Friday again. It must be nice to have some of those away from F1 a bit.
Absolutely. It's like 20, if I was to do, so I'm going to do probably about 8 races.
Okay.
Trackside for 8. And it's one of those ones, like if the team was like, no, we need you there every race, then I'd be like, well, I may as well race. Like I may as well go find myself a race seat. So they understood it straight away. Like the reason for, let's say, me having this change for 23, to give myself a bit of space as well and some time to prepare myself in other ways. So, and if it's even being at the factory a little more or something, then that's cool. But the travel, all of it, like just kind of needed to hit pause and see where I feel.
To that point, a little bit more free time. What do you plan on doing with it?
Super Bowl. So no, I want to. Well, yeah, that's one. But I want to. Even little things like. So if my family travels, a lot of the time they're traveling to see me race, and on a race weekend, it's intense. I'm intense. I'm not. Yeah, they don't see me, and if they see me, I'm thinking about the race, or I'm not like relaxed. Mm-hmm. So. Kind of even just to do like a family holiday with them where we're all kind of just on holiday, not talking about racing, like little things like that I look forward to. See some more live music. I want to like do national parks and just kind of get outdoors, do some adventures. And
I heard on Tom Clarkson's podcast, you were talking about going across the whole of the USA on a 110cc motorbike. Is that going to happen? Any closer to getting that?
It's being planned out. So the intention is for it to still happen. But I was kind of like, even if I do like one leg or something this year, like half, I think that'll,
The bike might need a rest as well. A 110cc,
I was like,
going to be struggling.
I'm going to get pretty sore as well. But no, I do. Like I want to do it's kind of random stuff, but stuff that I know I'll really enjoy and where I can escape and switch off. And like, I know how much I love riding bikes and like kind of that feeling of freedom and happiness I get from doing so. And if it's going across new land and unseen waters or whatever you call
uncharted territory.
Like that's also fascinating. And I think that'll just be like really good for my brain. And I think it'll just be fun.
America's a good country to do that for as well. Just so vast. you know.
Yeah.
Also, you're in the process of you're an executive producer on a new F1 show. How much time is that taking up for you with Hulu, and how much are you actually like sitting in the script reads and stuff like that? Like how's that been going?
So we're on. It's pretty involved. So we've got let's say a group chat with the writers and that, and it's basically they're asking me a bunch of stuff, and we're thinking would this happen, or how does that look, or tell me about this, how does that dynamic work? And then so I'm basically just feeding a whole lot of information back and just trying to guide the ship.
Do you enjoy that role?
Yeah, it's fun. It's different. So I'm very I like doing new stuff as well. I think stuff that excites me or challenges me a little bit. So maybe it's all those years at school that I kind of missed from dawdling or going out racing go-karts. So I feel like educating myself a little more these days.
That's a hell of a way to do it. Just executive producer show. That's great.
Right in the
If only
deep
it was
end.
that simple, we'd all be like, yeah, let's just do that for a week. But hey, it sounds great. I mean, it's and it shows you where F1 is right now. That because there's Brad Pitt's involved in something.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah, the appetite for it is massive.
To that point, obviously we're in New York. You were in Miami last year for the first one. We've got Vegas. I know how much you love Austin. When you got into the sport, did you ever envision it taking off like this in the States?
Not at the rate that it has.
Okay.
I felt like it was a matter of time or inevitable because
Why?
it's America, and America loves sports. They do sports so well, and Formula One is such a unique sport that is massive in other parts of the world. So I kind of felt like it was a matter of time till it got here and kind of got recognized and appreciated, I guess. But I mean, we went to Austin 2012, I think was the first year, and I knew nothing about Austin. Like I was like, I think this is where Lance Armstrong's from. But going there, I was just like, this is awesome. And the fans were so new and excited. And so it was already that year. I was like, okay, this could really happen. But yeah, I didn't think we'd have 3 in 10 years.
Do you see a difference in the American fan as compared to what you see across the world?
There's
Like how would
different-
you describe the American fan?
Well, I would describe them similar to the Aussies, where they're
Okay.
like quiet, like loud and outgoing, and it's like, you know, yell your name out from afar and kind of just say something funny or witty, or like, let's go grab a beer, or just, you know, like they're bros. I don't know. So they're pretty easygoing. But then you get to like Italy, for example, which is very like full on, like they're very more like kind of grabby. They're more like affectionate, if that makes sense.
Good word for it.
They need to touch, like, you know, so
They're in your bubble.
yeah, so they're like, so they might be seen as like more intense, but
Okay.
they're like, I think it's just passion. And then Japan, actually I was talking about this last night. Japan is wild because you've got like kind of two extremes. You've got the most polite fans in the world, where like super respectful, like they'll make a line and wait and whatever, but then they also probably know the most about you. Like they're like the most intense yet the most polite. I don't know how to describe it.
And the effort they put in as well, like
Yeah.
the costumes, it's all homemade, and it's just like suddenly beautiful kimonos, things like that.
Yeah.
Around teams, it's pretty special.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, they deserve the little, because the effort that goes in is, I mean, even like mechanics, like members of the team that like wouldn't normally have fans, you know, like they're making things for them, and it's like even like the drivers, like our trainers or our freaking managers or whatever, like they're treated like royalty.
Some of the press officers even have like a fan club, and it's like, this is crazy. Like they'll be walking down and they'll get like, you know, a thing like, can you sign this? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. You know,
Yeah.
their drivers next to them like, what? What's going on?
And they'll get them to sign a photo
Yeah.
of like them in their house 6 years ago. It's like, wait, how do you have this photo
Yeah,
of me
right.
in my house? That's funny.
But because they're so polite, you're like, oh, I'm sure it's
Yeah.
fine. I'm sure it's not.
It's not weird.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
hilarious. How much are you going to miss Lando? And how much is Lando going to miss you?
I think it's inevitable that he misses me more.
Sure.
You know, it's just, I don't make the rules. You know, it's just, it is what it is. But I enjoyed I say I enjoyed last year. I didn't always enjoy the driving part of last year, but I did enjoy like the relationship we had last year, and I think the first year the first year with any kind of new teammate, you're trying to like suss each other out as well, and like, oh, is he keeping his cards close to his chest or whatever? So there's like, you just do need a bit of time to figure out where it all lies in terms of like that relationship and how much you're going to help the team, etc. But yeah, last year it was just, we just kind of had a laugh and tried to make the car better. But yeah, he's a kid, and it kind of gives me an excuse to be a kid. So I like that. I'm a big kid, still very immature.
Well, speaking of that, we have some fan questions, and some of them are a bit kiddish. So if you would, does pineapple belong on pizza?
I'm going to say no, but I'll still eat it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Worst tasting shoe that you've ever drank out of?
Well, the worst are when they're not yours. So,
Lewis once was like appalled at?
Yeah.
I think you made him drink one, and he said it's the worst thing he'd ever drank, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, they obviously don't like. I mean, a race shoe's pretty bad because some people thought it was a new shoe. Like, I guess they're like, oh, like when you're back in like the conference room or whatever before the podium, like you put a new pair of boots on or something. Oh, no, like this is what we've raced in. So
it's a little salty, maybe a little extra salt in there.
But we do crave salts after a race because we're dehydrated. So I'm kind of helping my competitors out, which it's admirable.
Whatever,
it's
you
noble.
need to tell yourself. Okay. This is actually kind of deep. One song that has helped you get through tough times in your feels.
Oh, wow. So, well, the first song I thought of was, Monaco. So Monaco for me has always been, at least up until a few years ago, has always been like my happy place in terms of the race. Like I've always had success there, or I've just loved being there and always just gelled really well with the track. And I've always kind of felt like that's my place, at least personally or internally. So the last couple of years with McLaren, it was the complete opposite. Like I just had kind of like a horror time in Monaco. So I was playing a song there last year, which kind of was just getting me through kind of the low of what I was feeling in that weekend. So it was The Good I'll Do by Zach Bryan. Yeah. Do you know Zach Bryan?
I do. I'm going to have to put that on the pod.
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of like soothing, and it was kind of like someone giving me a hug, and that's what I felt like the song was doing to me. So yeah.
That's awesome. Reason for number 3.
So, well, I got it tattooed, so I don't really have a choice anymore. But
those things they do say are permanent.
Yeah, I know. Mum certainly said that more than once. So, my first ever go-kart race. So you sign up for a go-kart club, your license comes in the mail, and it comes with a number that you're going to do your race with. And it was a big number 3. And so there's a lot of kind of, nostalgia with that number for me. But I was a big fan of Dale Earnhardt. You know, he was my hero growing up. I was, just a massive fan. And I felt like he kind of, at least to me, put number 3 on the map, and it was such a big thing, especially here in the States, where it's like 3 for Dale. So, I was quite like proud to kind of carry that number in Formula One and other parts of the world.
The karting thing was a coincidence? It just happened to come through? Oh,
yeah.
That's
which was awesome. Really and like our house number was number 3 that we lived in. So there was a lot of like 3s in my life. I was like, all right, this is it. And I always preferred single digits. I just thought they looked like cleaner and cooler, so that was that.
Last question from the fans. What's the toughest race you've ever been a part of?
Singapore 2011. It was like my 4th or 5th race in Formula One because I got thrown in halfway through the season, and I did not anticipate how hot and physical Singapore was, and it was a 2-hour race. It ran so it was like the longest race I'd ever done, the hottest, the most physical, and I broke my wing, I think, on lap 1. So I was already like a lap down in a car that was always going to end probably 4 or 5 laps down. So I wasn't in the race from the start, so I didn't really have anything to race for. And physically, I was just spent. So that was one of those days, though, that you need where it's like never again. So from that day forward, I always trained hard, but I focused more on like heat training and specific like Singapore and like Malaysia training. And I was like, I never want to feel this way again in a race car. So that one was misery. Yeah. I was hoping the engine was just going to go boom.
She just
Yeah.
like held the revs.
Just come on, just let me hear like a noise I don't want to hear. But
I do wonder in those situations. I would just be like, guys, are you sure? Let's save the car. Come on, we need this. We need this for the end of the
But you do
season.
hear
guys. Come
people
on.
the problem
say
was
that.
I just got into F1 though, so
Yeah,
they're like,
right,
no, every
yeah,
lap
you're not
counts.
in a
You need
position
the
to do that.
experience.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't need this.
What are your memories of that first year? 'Cause, I mean, that car was. I remember you coming in. Silverstone was your first race,
Yeah.
wasn't it? That year? I mean, that car was not good. Like for anyone who's not familiar with the 2011 season. So how was that? You kind of come in, like you get your dream of being a Formula 1 driver, but there's not much you can do to get off the back row of the grid.
Yeah, it was in a way it was like maybe a blessing in disguise where because we were at the back, like the attention was kind of off me, so I wasn't like Lewis that jumped straight into McLaren in a winning car. So there was not really too much other than Red Bull watching me and kicking my butt. There wasn't really too many other people expecting much from me. So from that point of view, it was okay. But yeah, the car was tough and like getting laps, like blue flags. I remember Silverstone, I was losing like 5 seconds every blue flag. And they're like, no, you only need to lose about 1.5 seconds. So I ended up 4 laps down or something. And it was a bit of a disaster. But I remember seeing the car for the first time at Silverstone. And I was like looking at it and I know nothing about aerodynamics. But I was trying to convince myself that the car actually looked okay. I was like, probably just needs a good driver behind it, and it's probably not that bad. Anyways, yeah.
I love
Tried to
that.
convince myself.
I love that mindset. That's awesome.
We've all done that. It's just me. I just needs me in this. And it's
Some
like,
good self-talk. This has been thoroughly enjoyable. We can't tell you enough. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it, and we can't wait to see what's in store for you in the future. We appreciate
High five
you.
it.
High five it.
Thank you, man.
Daniel Ricciardo on Unlapped. Find us on YouTube. Give us a like. Subscribe to ESPN for more F1 content. And make sure you get us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast because you ain't getting Daniel Ricciardo elsewhere, people. This is ESPN.